Welcome to Milk Tea Designs. In today's video, we're going to talk about having a small crochet business, but not just a small crochet business, a sustainable crochet small business. First, we're going to talk about why I wanted to make this video, then we're going to talk about a very generalized sustainable small business model, then we're going to talk about the feasibility of having a slow fashion business, and then we're going to talk about some sustainable textile and yarn options for our possible slow fashion business. So feel free to skip to any chapter of this video that interests you. I have made some pieces that were for raves. Here are some examples. This very chunky knit crazy skirt. This tiny backpack that will just fit your phone and earplugs. This top and this other top. So, these are some really funky, fun clothes, and I really like how with raves and festivals, people can really wear whatever they want. So there's opportunity here to be really creative. That's why it's on my bucket list to do this, to make a rave/festival crochet clothing line. But then I think about the mass amount of clothing that's already produced and then just dumped into landfills or rivers. And I think, why should I produce more clothing? Like, when you think about it like that, it doesn't really make sense, does it? If we look at it from a different perspective, for example, looking at the benefits that a small business can have to the surrounding community, it might actually be worth it to try to make a difference through starting your own small business. So to have a sustainable small business, so many resources online to look at. I just looked at one research paper about a GES, which is a management model for sustainable business, and it kind of boiled down to knowing what your values are and making sure that they align with the principles of sustainability, which is about reducing your impact on the environment and reducing the use of non-renewable resources. So making sure your values align with that, and then setting your goals, your sub-goals, your strategies for those goals, and then all the little details, just going down that little management ladder. And it really seemed like this little triangle here, of first you used to have the business, it only cared about the economic, but then for sustainability, you have a business that its goals are also social and environmental. And this really spoke to me, because it's like, if I can make enough money to sustain myself, and then also make enough money to help with social and environmental issues, and have a business that aligns with helping those issues, well, that from this perspective, heck yeah, let's start a business. So we've talked about the general concept of a sustainable business management model, but let's look more specifically into a slow fashion business. So first I want to briefly describe what slow fashion is. So it's not fast fashion, and the big defining factor of fast fashion is that it exploits both natural and human resources in order to produce things very fast. Fast fashion makes a lot of sense for a large business that can exploit the economy of scale, but since we're talking about a small or even just a one-person business, slow fashion is kind of gonna be the automatic answer. But just the general concept of slow fashion has some neat benefits, including increasing fashion diversity instead of what we have today, which is very predictable and fast fashion trends. The one article I read, which is sourced in my paper linked in the description below, didn't really talk about the feasibility of a one-man show of a person profiting off their slow fashion business, but from my limited perspective, I think a one-person crochet small fashion business can at least be profitable if we have multiple streams of income outside of just the finished wearable product. And in my head, these other streams are selling the crochet patterns to make the clothes, getting into content creation where you can make content about how your small business is going, because those are fun videos, and also content about how you're creating your patterns, because those are also really fun and interesting. And then also reinvesting. I haven't looked into this, but possibly reinvesting in the stock market and looking for other sustainable companies or sustainable ETFs you can invest back into. So from these three other streams, plus the finished product, I think that's at least gonna be possible. Like, now let's talk about yarn and maybe hate on acrylic. So here's some stark statistics. 85% of worn out clothing ends up in landfills where it is either burned or adds to the landfill, while 12% of it is recycled into cleaning cloths and less than 1% of it is upcycled into new clothing. Furthermore, I looked at a study where they cut virgin cotton fibers with worn cotton clothing fibers and made quality yarn, which led to some inspiration, because we've heard of t-shirt yarn where you cut t-shirts into strips and somehow make it into yarn. I haven't looked into it much, but definitely will. So imagine even a small business owner could go to one of those super cheap bulk buy by the pound thrift stores, get a bunch of cotton and make their yarn without adding any additional negative impact to the environment, while also possibly diverting that very cheap old used clothing from landfills. And then also in this production of making your t-shirt yarn, there may be some waste in this production, right? But another study showed that old cotton clothing is very compostable, which is another general benefit for natural fibers, is that they can be composted very easily, whereas synthetic fibers cannot, and they take forever to break down, while also adding microplastics to our environment and our water cycle. So that's definitely something to think about. Then the other thing is, eventually, in the future, the fast fashion stops being a thing, and we don't have all this excess waste. Hypothetically, we're going to have to think about how we can sustainably produce fibers for the environment, which will require a whole nother look into the research of the various natural fiber possibilities, because if we're keeping things simple and keeping things compostable, I think it's gonna be natural fibers and just finding how to best produce those. So I feel like the last topic really related back to the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle, keeping it simple. If the 1% of my viewers who are computer science majors know, the KISS principle, keep it stupid simple, applies here. But I feel like my things also related back to the 4 solutions to all environmental problems that we learned about in Waters and Civilization. So I'll go through those, but feel free to stop the video here if you're not interested. These are just not, said to be right or wrong. It's just that all of our environmental problems can be boiled down to these 4 solutions. So number 1 is the market liberal framework, where prices are based on the environmental cost as well as production. So that would end up causing people to buy less because things are more expensive, but neither right or wrong. So number 2 is institutionalist, who say the environmental problems are larger than the individual level and that the government needs to protect our resources through parks and regulations. Number 3 is bioenvironmentalism. Mass balance problem. We have finite resources and increasing population. Could everyone in the world enjoy the lifestyle we do forever? We gotta change consumption patterns or reduce population. And then number 4 is the social green world view. Solution to environmental problems is reducing inequality so there are not haves and have-nots driven by monetary gain. So those are just 4 ideologies you can think about that somewhat relate to the topic of having your own small personal business. I guess number 2 doesn't relate a whole lot, because that's more about the government, but the other 3, I found them relatively related. So please comment down below any thoughts you had on this video, any tips, really anything, even hate comments for me hating on acrylic. Thank you for watching.